Kiyotaka Ayanokoji continued walking down the hallway, lost in thought. He couldn't believe he had stooped so low as to ask Arisu Sakayanagi to spend the night with Arata. But it was necessary to achieve his goals. He had been keeping tabs on Arata, and had discovered that he had some valuable information that could help Kiyotaka in his mission. But Arata was also a difficult person to deal with, and Kiyotaka needed to find a way to get him to cooperate. That's when he came up with the idea to Arisu Sakayanagi. She was skilled at manipulating people and had a reputation for getting what she wanted. Kiyotaka knew that if anyone could convince Arata to talk, it would be her. As he continued down the hallway, Kiyotaka's thoughts turned to the White Room, the place where he had spent most of his childhood. He had been subjected to brutal experiments there, and he knew firsthand the kind of pain and suffering that went on behind those walls. That's why he was so determined to put an end to the White Room's operations. He couldn't stand the thought of anyone else going through what he had experienced. With a deep sigh, Kiyotaka refocused his thoughts on the task at hand. He had a job to do, and he couldn't let his personal feelings get in the way. Kiyotaka Ayanokoji continued his field trip assignment, climbing up the stairs to reach the next designated area. As he walked, he couldn't help but recall a conversation he had witnessed between Arata and Kakeru Ryuen. Arata had approached Kakeru and said, "We had the gym this morning, but we'll give you our gym time." Kakeru had chuckled, smirking arrogantly. "Seems you classy losers understand who your superiors are. Yeah, we'll take your gym time." With that, Kakeru and Class 1C had headed to the gym, leaving Arata behind. As Kiyotaka Ayanokoji walked up the stairs, he pondered over the plan he had made with Arisu Sakayanagi to get what they wanted from Arata. He couldn't shake the feeling that the plan was too simple, but he reminded himself that sometimes the most effective tools are the simplest ones. Lost in thought, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji almost missed his next assignment location, the library. He went inside and started to scan the shelves for books that could help him complete the assignment. As he browsed through the titles, his mind went back to the flashback of Arata and Kakeru Ryuen. Arata had given up the gym time so easily, which made Kiyotaka Ayanokoji think that maybe there was more to the situation than what met the eye. However, he reminded himself that he couldn't let his guard down, and he needed to stay focused on the task at hand. As he continued his search, he mused to himself, maybe the plan was too easy, but just like a screwdriver, every tool is not too complicated to use. He knew that even the simplest plans could be effective if executed properly. Kiyotaka Ayanokoji took one last step, his footsteps echoing through the empty hallway. He turned his head and spoke in a calm, collected tone. "You can come out now." From the shadows, Arata and Izayoi emerged, their eyes fixed on Kiyotaka. He continued to look straight ahead, unfazed by their sudden appearance. After a moment of tense silence, Sora, Shiro, and Sans appeared. The air was thick with anticipation as everyone stood still, waiting for someone to speak first. Sans broke the silence. "Hey there, buddy, chum, pal, friend, buddy, chum, pal, bud, friend, fella, brother, amigo, pal, buddy, friend, chum, pal. I don't mean to be rude, my friend, pal, home sliced bread, sliced dog, but I gotta warn ya, if you take one more diddly darn step right there, I'm going to have to diddly darn snap your neck." Shiro suddenly interrupted. "Did you have a stroke or something?" Sans. "Nah, I'm good. I just got a little carried away there. Sorry about that, bud." Kiyotaka Ayanokoji watched the exchange with mild interest, but didn't comment. He continued to observe the group in front of him, waiting for someone to speak up. "Sora, anyways, I'm pretty sure you have an idea why we're here, Kiyotaka Ayanokoji." Kiyotaka Yanakoji contemplated whether to feign ignorance, but he knew it would be pointless with these 5 individuals. They were unlike any other students he had encountered before. "So, what's your next move?" he asked calmly, his gaze shifting from one person to another. Izayoi clenched his fists together, a wicked grin spreading across his face. "Knocking your teeth out would be first," he declared, looking over at Kiyotaka Yanakoji. "I've been looking for some real fun, and that school was so boring. Now it's time for some good old classic fun." Kiyotaka Yanakoji responded coolly. "That's your problem, Sakamaki Izayoi. Have you considered what would happen if you create a situation where violence is the only outcome? It's a short-sighted and reckless approach." Despite Izayoi's confident grin, he raised an eyebrow in response to Kiyotaka Yanakoji's words. "The answer is only violence will be born, but more importantly..." Kiyotaka then tapped his foot, and a secret compartment opened up in his shoe. He pulled out a gun and pointed it at Shiro. "Death will be the only outcome." The gun seemed to have a silencer on it as he started firing it left to right and behind him, as the others tried to avoid the shots. As Kiyotaka Yanakoji fired his gun, the sound of the shots echoed through the room. The guards, Jeff and Steve, stirred in their sleep but quickly dismissed the noise and went back to snoring. Meanwhile, the others in the room tried to dodge the gunfire as best as they could. As the shooting ceased, a deafening silence filled the air, broken by the sound of the falls outside. Sans was on his knees, looking up at the gun pointed at him, as a red liquid began to pool around him, staining the floor. Sora and Shiro were lying in a pool of their own blood, motionless and lifeless, their eyes staring blankly ahead. The room was silent except for the sound of Kiyotaka Yanakoji's heavy breathing as he stood over their bodies, his gun still in hand. The once bright and colorful room was now dim and gloomy, tainted by the tragedy that had just unfolded. Sans gritted his teeth, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief. "Why? Why? We were classmates! Why Papyrus? Why us? I get when we were gonna rough you up, but resorting to killing us?" Sans exclaimed, his eyes filled with tears. He looked around at his fallen comrades, unsure if they were truly dead, but he could assume as much. Kiyotaka Yanakoji remained silent, only staring at Sans with an emotionless face. Kiyotaka Yanakoji's voice was cold and matter-of-fact as he spoke. "Because you 5 are dangerous tools that cannot be controlled. You were too smart for your own good, and you threatened to upset the balance of power at the school. We couldn't have that." Sans felt a chill run down his spine as he realized the gravity of the situation. He couldn't believe that Kiyotaka Yanakoji and the others would resort to killing their own classmates. He felt a mix of anger and sadness, but he knew that there was nothing he could do at this point. Kiyotaka Yanakoji gripped the trigger and started to pull it back.